Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to part number 2 of this Formula 1 mid-season review. Just in case you don't know how this mid-season review will work, I'm going to go through each team, individually, and point out one good thing I feel that the team has succeeded in this season, and one negative that I feel the team needs to still improve on. We've already discussed Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull in the last video. Today we're going to discuss McLaren, Renault and Toro Rosso, who currently occupy, or McLaren, Toro Rosso and Renault, who currently occupy 4th, 5th and 6th in the Constructors' Championship. So let's get into it then, shall we? First, starting up with McLaren, and positive thing this season, I'm going to say drivers. I know that may sound like a simple one, but Carlos Sainz, let's first start with him. He's currently P7 in the Drivers' Championship. He's going to take P5 and P6, sorry, in the Championship. Probably, I don't know when, but it'll be soon enough. So long he keeps up his good points run and good points tally. He's had a fantastic first season at McLaren, in my opinion. Really has. Very, very solid season. He's had a few 5th places. You know, he's done a superb job. And let's not forget, who was the man he replaced? Fernando Alonso. He replaced his idol at McLaren. And is he doing a good job as Alonso? In my opinion, yes. He may, not be maybe as complete. He may not be a double world champion, but let's forget that. It's the job he's done out on track. He hasn't done any worse. I think he's very, very positive for the team. He doesn't seem to have a bad relationship with his teammate yet. And yeah, you know, he does seem to suit that McLaren outfit at the moment. It has to be said. It seems very, very positive. And, you know, it's not like the team's all built around him, and I think he understands that, Carlos. Whereas maybe Alonso, the team was all built around him compared to Van Dorn, and it was very much a one-sided team, a bit like the Verstappen effect. You know, the team was built around Alonso, not just both drivers, whereas with Sainz, it's built around both drivers. But Sainz is doing a very, very good job this season at McLaren. Hands down. But having said that, the same must be said for rookie driver Lando Norris, of course. He's in his first season of Formula 1, and he hasn't done a bad job. I think he scored 22 points. Okay, so not bad in that. He would have probably had a lot more by now if it wasn't for the French Grand Prix result, of course. So he hasn't done a bad job. He's done a solid job. He's been solid. He's sometimes been able to out-qualify his teammate. His teammate's been sometimes able to out-qualify him. So he's certainly a quick driver overall as far as that's concerned. But he's done a good job. From, I think, a McLaren point of view. If I was McLaren right now, you know, I'd be happy with both my drivers, and they actually are. They signed them both at the British Grand Prix for another season. Obviously, Sainz was already contracted for next season. Norris wasn't. Norris was on like a probation period, see how he would do, and they're happy, and he's, you know, passed the McLaren test. And let's not forget who Norris replaced. He replaced, obviously, I think he's the Formula 2 champion from, if I'm correct, 2015, Stoffel Van Dorn. But regardless whether Van Dorn's GP2 champion or not, let's not forget, he still replaced Van Dorn, and he's probably scored, I don't want to 100% say it, but I'm pretty sure he's actually scored, the same amount, if not more points, than Van Dorn was able to achieve in 2 seasons at McLaren. And yeah, he's done a fantastic job for McLaren. Both drivers have. The car's been good, yes. It's been probably a lot better than last season. But, at the end of the day, no excuses. Both drivers have done a very, very solid job for their first season at McLaren. I think the negative though thing about McLaren right now is the structure, and I think, you know, in a way McLaren knows it already, because throughout the season, one thing that McLaren's been working on is actually building that structure. Obviously, they've already got Zak Brown, CEO, but they brought in Seidl, I think that's how you pronounce his name, James Key from Toro Rosso. They've been just building to that McLaren structure, and, you know, I really do get the sense that McLaren are now on the way back up. Like, 2017, I didn't really get that feeling. 2018, I didn't get that feeling either. Whereas this season, I'm now starting to get the feeling, you know, and I did actually think it at the end of last season, you know, if McLaren gets the right people in place, McLaren will start to progress. And I felt that's what was wrong with McLaren. It was a flaw, okay, McLaren had. They just didn't have the structure, okay, or no one with experience or character there in the team. No one willing to push the boat out and try something different. And that is what I felt McLaren lacked for a number of seasons, really. Because if you look back at 2008, Martin Whitmarsh, Ron Dennis, you know, it was very much a smooth operation, if that makes sense. And McLaren's always been the team where I've always had the feeling it's a very smooth operation. Whereas with Red Bull, with Ferrari, with Mercedes, it's a very clinical operation. And what I mean by that is, with Ferrari, with Red Bull, with Mercedes, they're willing to sack people if things go wrong. Whereas McLaren, they'll take a bit more time to analyse the data, they'll take a bit more time to analyse it. And I feel like that's where McLaren been going wrong, especially now, because Formula 1's a different business than it was 10, 15, 20 or 30 years ago. It's a very different business. I think in Formula 1 to succeed now, you need the best people, you need a chain, rather than a one-man machine. And that's what you need now in Formula 1. And I feel like McLaren are now catching on to that idea, and they're now starting to put the puzzle and the jigsaw in place. Next, moving on to Toro Rosso. Currently sat 5th in the championship. Now, if it wasn't for Danny Kvyat's podium, obviously they'd be a lot lower. I think they'd be 2 places lower, 7th. However, they're 5th, okay? That's where they are. And, you know, Franz Tost obviously doing a great job as team principal. Always has done, really. He has been a great team principal. And, you know, quite honestly, he's such a great guy, you know, and for young drivers, he's very, how can you put it? He's got a lot of wisdom, Franz has. And he knows the team well. He looks like a guy that would have a laugh at times, but he's also very serious when it comes down to the business. And I think that's the thing about Franz Tost. He's just one of them guys. But that Toro Rosso team, listen, remember, this is a Red Bull Junior team. It says Red Bull on the side of the car. Toro Rosso, okay, in Italian actually means the words Red Bull. So, you know, obviously, you know, Toro Rosso, Red Bull team, I think it's always going to be the case where they're going to have some, you know, decent performances, because the car isn't designed to be a thrilling, well, or race-winning car. It's only designed to give young drivers the opportunity, okay, and is only meant to be competing with the midfield, okay. And really, this is why they want it to compete with the midfield, this car, because, you know, it's just to see whether or not those drivers coming up into that Red Bull rank can actually compete with those in the midfield, if not destroy them. And that is the whole point of the Red Bull program. You go from Red Bull's Formula 2 team to Red Bull or Toro Rosso, and then you'll be promoted so long you're good enough into the Red Bull car, just like Sebastian Vettel was, or Verstappen, or Ricciardo, and you'll be competing for the championship and race wins. That's the aim of the Red Bull program anyway. And obviously, they're always going to have a good car, I think, Toro Rosso. They've never really shown up with a terrible car in Formula 1. Not that I can remember, especially in recent years. They've always been able to score some points somewhere in the season or another. Like, they do have the facilities, they do have the expertise as well. And yeah, they've always have done. They're a good team, and no doubt about it. You know, so for me, you know, Toro Rosso, you know, have done really, really good this season. But standout moment anyway for the season for me, it would have to be, okay, probably the Germany podium. First podium in 10 years. It's your second podium in history. Your last podium came, okay, 11 years ago in the 2008 Italian Grand Prix. You know, absolutely phenomenal, you know, achievement to, you know, get a podium at Germany. Okay, yes, some conditions were a lottery, okay, and to do well you had to have an experienced driver, but they had that in Danny Kvyat. So yeah, for me, you know, very, very good season for Toro Rosso, and a very, very good podium. Low point, well, there isn't too many of them really, I don't think, personally. I would have to say my lowest point would actually be losing Alex Albon to a degree, because obviously Alex has done a good job, Alex Albon. So for me, I think losing Alex Albon is a bit of a shame for Toro Rosso, and especially to, you know, have a change in driver lineup midway through the season. However, let's not forget, okay, you know, they are a Red Bull junior team, okay. Red Bull can do whatever they like with their with their 4 cars, effectively, and with their 4 drivers. I don't think Toro Rosso will be too upset. They've still got Kvyat, of course. So I think, you know, Toro Rosso and the Red Bull Junior team will be happy. But I think, you know, that's probably the low point, you know, losing a driver who's done pretty well. As Franz Tost said, actually, he felt, you know, it probably a bit too early to promote, and actually thinks, you know, Albon would have been better staying to the end of the season, you know, probably suggesting that Kvyat was more ready for a move than Albon. Do I agree with him on that point? I do and I don't, of course. I think Red Bull have the choice on who they want. Do I agree with him whether Kvyat should have been promoted? Yes. Do I agree that it could be too early for Albon? Yes. But will we find out whether or what the answer will be? Yes, we will. Come, let's say, the Russian or Japanese Grand Prix, Albon isn't delivering, Kvyat is still performing well, I think then that really, no doubts, for me, 2020, the seat should be handed to Kvyat. And finally, coming on to Renault. Positive point is actually probably the arrival of Daniel Ricciardo, in my point. Currently 6th in the Constructors' Championship. It's not been good enough really from Renault. But to get the arrival of obviously such a superstar, such a sellable product in Daniel Ricciardo, I think that's the only positive so far they can take from the season. Because obviously Daniel Ricciardo is a sellable product, if you know what I mean. There are probably about how many drivers on the grid that are probably sellable products right now. Obviously you got Hamilton, Vettel, Verstappen, I would say Ricciardo, and maybe Sainz and Raikkonen are your probably sellable products. And what I mean by sellable, they are the face of Formula 1 right now, because, you know, overall they're performing at the best for their teams, and, you know, as drivers. Like, Vettel's finished 2nd in the past 2 seasons for Ferrari. Currently he's actually leading the championship for Ferrari in the sense as a driver, so he's Ferrari's best hope. Mercedes, obviously Hamilton, reigning champion and current championship leader. Verstappen, you know, second and third place in the Drivers' Championship, race winner, okay, of course, is probably, maybe, if possible, the next big Michael Schumacher type driver. Ricciardo, multiple race winner, Red Bull driver, huge Australian prospect, of course, at the peak of his powers in Formula 1 right now. And Sainz, okay, or Sainz and Raikkonen, well, Sainz, you know, Spanish, the young Spanish hot shoot, and obviously Raikkonen is the man from from Finland, of course, or Finland, and is ice cool. So these are the sellable products right now of Formula 1 right now. These are the most sellable faces of Formula 1. Whereas, maybe, I'm not saying Charles Leclerc isn't a sellable face, but, you know, obviously I think for Renault, having a sellable face like Daniel Ricciardo is so important to them. It's a bit like Fernando Alonso, you could argue, in that sort of essence. You know, Daniel Ricciardo is certainly going to bring, well, Renault a lot of money, a lot of reputation, because, you know, he's a race winner, he's a proven race winner, he's got his proven track record. Negative point, as I say, performance overall of that Renault car. It's not been good enough. I'm sorry. Regardless whether you got Daniel Ricciardo in it, regardless whether Daniel Ricciardo may not be performing at his best right now, but the car hasn't been good enough. I'm sorry. That car, it's been quite slow at times. It's not been on the pace as maybe the McLaren or cars around it. And for me, that is not good enough for Renault. And remember, Renault finished 4th last season in the Constructors, and right now they're 6th. I know it's very, very narrow, the points margin from, you know, well, still, from Renault to McLaren, it's still possible to finish 4th. They need a good second half of the season, but, you know, the first half of the season, what we're talking about right now, it hasn't been good enough for me. And I don't think good enough for Renault, and I think Renault will want to improve in the second half of the season to make that leap. But also, not only was this meant to be, you know, another year to consolidate that 4th place in the championship, but I think, and for me, it felt like it should have been the year Renault should have taken that step up towards that Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes, you know, element. And they haven't done that. They've actually fallen well short of anything like that. So, yeah, it's not been a great season for Renault overall. And I hope they do have a or a good second half of the season, a better one than they've already had. But we'll have to wait and see. So yeah, anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, that's part number 2 of this mid-season review. Tell me your plus points or your negative points for each one of them 3 teams, McLaren, Toro Rosso, and obviously Renault. Next time we'll finish off the series with obviously Racing Point, Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams. Obviously we got some big talking points about there as well. So yeah, I really look forward to doing that one, obviously. So until then, have a great day. See you all next time for another video of F1 2019. I'm your host, Julian. See you all next time. Thank you for watching.